So Harrison, if you can start with the I think we're recording, so it's fine. So you can start with the presentation, and I'll stay available. Should I have something to say?
Okie dokie, fantastic. Thank you very much, Bruno, for that fabulous introduction. Yeah, so as Bruno said, we've got a big update, ESA Pro 2, coming out very, very soon. We've got a whole host of great new features, improvements, workflow improvements, and all this great sort of stuff. So let's just jump right in, I think. So when we're looking at ESA Pro 2 now, you might be very familiar with everything. There's been a slight UI refresh in certain icons and how certain things are colored, but it's nothing too drastic. So we'll start off section by section, starting in the Edit tab, and we're in the Builder window right now. As you can see, the icon for a single channel has changed. It's now just this little dimmer icon here. Still works exactly as you would expect. Moving down a little bit, we've got this brand new fixture type down here. This is the relay fixture type. So relays are compatible with the DINA DR1, and you can connect to an external relay from the device, program it in here so it's controlled by the DINA. So we're just going to open this up. We're going to patch that. Relays take up a single channel in your DMX universe, and once patched, it'll look something like this, with this nice little switch icon in the middle here. We'll talk about programming those in a little bit when we move on to the Selections tab. Of course, one of the other big additions that isn't in this, what we're currently seeing, but will appear over in this side of the screen with all the other generic fixtures, will be DALI fixtures as well. As Bruno said, we'll be doing a in-depth webinar on that later this year, but we plan to support, I think it's 4 or 5 different DALI gears, complete support to begin with, and we'll then expand on that as we move forward with DALI. So that's kind of it for the build window. Everything's very much the same. You've got all your properties over on the right here still. You've got all of your fixtures on the left here as well. So if we move on to the Selections tab, this is where things are really going to start to change and things are going to start becoming a little bit more unfamiliar. So let's start with timelines. So the master timeline section down the bottom here has changed. One of the big changes is that a lot of the automation options that you previously had that would appear here have moved. So we've left opacity, phasing, and saturation down here. So your kind of more generic parameters that you would want to automate. Just collapse that. We've got a couple of new tools to help you do various bits and pieces. So let's start with moving multiple blocks. You can now move multiple blocks in relation to each other. So if we wanted to move these 2 blocks down the bottom here, click and drag, and those will now move completely in relation with each other. If we select all 3, again, so really just like nice and easy. If you've got a few different blocks in the scene that you like how they're timed together, but you want to move them later in the scene or earlier in the scene, it's a really handy tool for that. We've now got tools to replicate and divide blocks as well. So it's literally copy and paste. So right click, you go to the copy that here. We've got this blank timeline down here, select here, we paste, and then we've cut and pasted the exact same DMX data that was in this block onto this new timeline. We now got tools to cut up blocks as well. So if you like an effect that you've got in a block, but once it goes past a certain point, you're not a huge fan, you can right click and you can press split. This will split the block at the point where you clicked on it. So these are completely different blocks now. Again, really handy if you've got a cool effect that you want to keep, but you want to cut it up, move certain bits and pieces around. It's a really nice tool for that. Moving on, we've got two new tools up here that enable and disable block overlap. So yeah, it's as it says. So we've got it set at the minute to allow overlap. So I can take this block, drag it here, and these will overlap, playing above each other, and then we can turn it on so that these blocks can't overlap anymore. So if you're working with big scenes that have a lot of moving pieces, this is going to be really helpful to ensure that either you're getting the effect that you desire or that you're not crossing over blocks and potentially tying yourself in knots with your programming. Next big change to talk about are the way that targets for blocks work. So previously in ESA Pro 2.0, each timeline, targets were assigned to timelines. So for example, if I had this outer ring here, it would be assigned to this timeline. And any block on this timeline would affect the targets that we had selected for it. Now, what we can do is we can assign targets to specific blocks. So in this scene here, we've got one timeline that affects two different halves of this ring. So if we just play on that for a second, we've got green on one side, and then halfway through, switches to the other. We do this just like we used to. You select the targets that you want to map, the fixtures that you want to target. Come down here, add selected fixtures, and there we go. We've now got this block assigned to new targets. So it's a really great way to kind of split up your fixtures a bit more. It just allows you a bit more individual control over your fixtures, kind of like zones, but in a timeline. Moving on, we're going to start looking at the basic block. Now, this is a really, really big change. So we've got our basic blocks down here. Now, previously, when you added a basic block, you'd have this pop-up appear, and you could select which channels you wanted to enable in that block. Now, we don't have that pop-up appear at all. Instead, what you'll be presented with is this window over here. This is the features timeline, and it will only appear when you're using basic blocks. So this is a good way. This was a good way for us to streamline doing automations on fixtures that have large channel counts and all these cool little weird channels that you don't necessarily find in every other fixture. So this is where you'll handle all of that kind of automation now. So to begin coloring the light, for example, we've got these points here, so we'll hit plus. We can assign the value here, or you can alternately just select the color, and that will put it to 100%. And then we collapse here, and just like in ESA Pro 2, automation works exactly the same way. You have these anchor points, and you can manipulate them in time and their ultimate value as well. We've done this to really kind of make the master timelines easier to look at and understand. So if you want to get into the deep into the nitty-gritty automation side of things, it'll all happen somewhere else, and then you've got your master timeline with your blocks, so you can kind of map everything out and time everything in a scene as you would like to do so. So let's come down here and we'll look at a fixture that has slightly more channels than just a generic RGB. So we've got a scanner selected here, and again, all of these channels that we can now automate appear on this left side, and then you've got your generic color, pan, tilt, and dimmer channels down the bottom here as well. Okie dokie, right. So we've got a couple of new block types, in addition to the big sweeping changes that we've made to basic blocks. So sequences from ESA Pro 2.0 have been replaced, and it's now, everything is now just the scene. But in scenes, you can have this paint block. Now, this paint block, when we add it, is our step editor. So we drag it to our fixtures just like you would any other effect type, and then we can create and add steps down here, change colors, change the channels, you can turn it off, or you can use this paintbrush tool up here, and then you can go along and you can paint fixtures. So if we have that selected, we can paint the fixtures individually in each step. So yeah, that really replaces sequences. Obviously, these are not suitable for everything, but if you're using a lower memory device or one of our flash memory devices, this is going to be a really great way to really get the most out of them and allow you to really make the most out of each step that you have in a scene.
That just a remark, like that paint tool is basically what we have available with the basic ESA 2 software. I mean, if you're familiar with that software, it works the same, like weight and fade time, and it's just like to program like easy step. If you have like a couple for wall washer, for example, you want to jump from color to color, it's super easy to manage. And this is something like people that was available in the old ESA Pro software. We thought it wasn't used, and like people complained a lot about this missing tool, so we've decided to add it. This is just what I wanted to add.
Yeah, no, Bruno's right. This works exactly the same as the step editor in ESA Pro 2. So not in ESA Pro 2, in ESA 2. Sorry. So if you're familiar with ESA 2, this is going to be really, really easy to use. Additionally, of course, you can add more steps, copy and paste entire steps, bin steps down here as well. So we've got one other new block type in our effects list down here at the bottom. Well, actually, we've got two. We've got the relay block. So this works exclusively with that relay fixture that we patched earlier. So if we come over to the relay fixture, and when we add this, it creates the relay block here in this timeline. So relays in 2.1 work in the getting all tongue-tied there. So relays work on a timeline when a timeline has a relay block on it. So for example, this first 5 seconds of this timeline, the relay is active. When we no longer have a block, so if we've got the empty space like we do at the end here, the relay will become inactive. So there's really nothing else to it. You can edit your duration, start time and end time up the top here, but relays are very, very simple to use. Yeah, it's literally just a case of when there's block, relay is active. When there is no block, the relay becomes inactive. And then we've got the audio block, which is another new block. This replaces the audio timelines from ESA Pro 2. So if you remember in ESA Pro 2, we had, I think it was 3 different kinds of timelines. We had selection timelines, mapping timelines, and audio timelines. It was a little bit confusing, to say the least. So the software will now create the appropriate timeline for you. So you can do that, drag that, and then where's that gone? Oh, audio block has disappeared. Pretty much when you drag it to a timeline, what will happen is a window will appear and it will prompt you to select an audio file to import. Just as with 2.0, the only file types that 2.1 will accept for audio will be WAV and MP3 files. Unfortunately, no other file types are compatible. Audio, we have a question. Okay, will audio now be enabled for the Dino now that there's an audio block, or is that still under development? To my knowledge, audio is already available on the Dino DR1. You require a license upgrade if you're using the DR1 Lite model. So if you're using a Lite, yeah, you'll need the SUT upgrade, but audio is available in its
Yeah,
current state.
audio on Dino 1 is available, but this is like a way different, completely different than what we're doing here. The audio on Dino 1 is an audio input. It allows you to trigger any lighting sequence with the music bit. So, for instance, imagine you have like a simple block with 10 colors, and you wanna jump, instead of following the internal timeline, the internal time, you want to jump from color to color following the music. This is what it's going to do, and this has to be programmed within the TCA, so the triggers. So we this is something we're going to see at the end. We'll come do a quick demo on how to program an audio TCA.
Okie dokie. Yeah, so this is as Bruno was saying, this is a great way to program sound to life. Once you imported the audio file, you'll see a waveform appear on that timeline, and you set it all up in the TCA triggering section, and you'll be able to find information all about this in the ESA Pro 2.1 manual, which we will be sharing with everybody when we release the public beta, which will be happening soon, I am informed. Okie dokie, right, so yeah, so those are all the new effects blocks that we've got, and this feature timeline as well. So let's move on. Everything in mappings is the same. You've got all the same effects that you're used to, and mappings works in completely the same way. So there's really nothing new to go over here. So let's move on to the standalone screen.
I guess,
So,
Harrison, there was a question from
yeah.
Robert, like asking for the zone programming.
Oh,
I've seen this on
zones.
the from the text. Like, are we
program
able
per
to
zone,
program per
so
zone now, so not all other zones are in blackout? Of course, you can program per zone. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And actually, this is a good point of something that I missed. You can now reorder zones by dragging along the top here. And if you want to edit the zone that a fixture is in, come back to the build section, select the fixture, and then over here, you can choose which zone your fixture resides in. Okie dokie. Do we have any other questions about the editor screen while we're here, actually?
There was a question about block overlapping, but someone
Block
has replied
overlapping?
already. Yeah, someone has
Yeah,
replied
yeah.
already,
So,
and regarding
yeah,
like
that's
the audio.
all. Yeah, and that's all controlled down here if you want block overlap to be enabled or disabled. Okay, let's move on to the standalone screen then. Things are a little bit different here. Not terribly different, but different enough. So we will begin up the top here. So we've got a few new buttons for you to select. Let's make that active. So yeah, we've got a few new options along the top here. Just make it a little bit smaller. Right for cloud. So if you're using the Nickelodeon Cloud with one of our devices on one of your projects, you can now write shows specifically for cloud compatibility. And you literally press this button here, and it'll pop up asking you to save it, save in a separate location, and you can then upload that file to the cloud, add it to your device, and you're good to go. So you won't be uploading files as you would if you were writing directly to a device or a device SD card. It will be done through the cloud portal. You can obviously find more information about the cloud on our website. Or do we have the cloud webinar available for people to review, Bruno? There is a
Yeah.
cloud webinar. Yeah.
Sorry, it's on the YouTube channel. Yeah.
Yep. So on the Nickelodeon YouTube channel, you can go there and you'll be able to review this webinar as well once we're finished here. So now I've got set UTC. This works differently as well. So previously you would have to set your time clock in Hardware Manager or by going into the menus up here. You can now do it directly here. You press set UTC, and then you can set your location, your latitude and longitude if you really want to. And you've got all of these different time zone options here as well. So this is really just to save you having to go and set everything in Hardware Manager once you've written your triggers. Next to this, we've got the scenes list button. So people have been asking for this one for a little while. They've been asking for a triggers list button as well. So this will present all of your scene information in a text format that you can then save to your desktop. So you've got your index, really helpful. You've got the hexadecimal byte information, or if you are triggering scenes via UDP, so you're no longer having to dig through the manual or take random guesses as to the byte information that you need. It's all listed here. Of course, you've got the name of the scene and the zone as well. And we've got the same thing for your TCA triggers. So you've got the type of trigger at the top here, your event, your condition, and then what that trigger will start. You can see down here, so we've got the time trigger up here, we've got a time trigger here that also has some port information on it as well. And again, you can save that to your desktop up at the top here. So these are going to be really great if you want to leave your clients a list of triggers and scenes so that they're not having to press buttons randomly. And you're not having to take screenshots of your trigger list and your scene list and that sort of stuff.
Yeah. The scene list is also super important to collect the index. Like imagine you have like 1,000 scenes. We have a customer who's done that. So, and they wanted to send like UDP command from another like an external device to trigger the scene. And the way it works now, when you send a UDP command to start like let's say scene 10, you have to give it like to give the command the index of the scene. Which of course you can imagine if you have 1,000 scenes, it's gonna be difficult to start like let's say like scene whatever. Like if you do not have this on a printed somewhere. So this is the reason why we've done that list, so you can easily find the hexadecimal value, so you can trigger the right scene. I mean, I can understand it was a bit of a nightmare if you wanted to trigger a scene without the number, especially when you are using multiple zones, because there is no specific value for the zone. They just go at the end of the list, so it's a bit difficult. So that is super useful if you use UDP or TCP command to trigger your scenes.
Yeah, really, really useful. Previously, you would have to go into the show map to find your scene hex byte, but now we managed to do away with that altogether, which is great. So, moving on, the DINA DR1, DR2, SR1, and the SLESA U11, of course, you have the options to use ArtNet. And one issue that we found is that the DINA, by default, sends a lot of ArtNet data packets, and the nodes some nodes often don't like that. So giving you the option to change your eDMX refresh time down here. Whilst this is in ESA Pro 2.1, this feature will only be compatible with DINA firmware 4 and above, which will be being released later this year. But yeah, this is a good way if you're having issues with ArtNet. It's a good troubleshooting method, and yeah, it's a good way to ensure that your ArtNet nodes aren't getting completely flooded with packets from your DNO. Obviously, above that, we've got all of our usual properties, including port sensitivity timing as well. I see, Rob, reorder triggers list. Yeah, so you can now reorder your triggers. Important to know that the last trigger in a list will take priority. So if you've got triggers that have some crossover, the trigger that's lower in the list will take priority over ones that are higher in the list. And to reorder them, literally we just click these three buttons here and we drag. A little difficult to see. You kind of got to watch over here, I guess, with this one because we haven't got much identifiable information. Any new features on let's talk about some additions to the TCA triggers. So we've got a couple of new TCA actions that will be coming for the DINA range and the SLESA U11 that include RS232 commands, UDP commands, and the ability to store a syslog.
Does new features will be available with the next release? By the way, you're now able to show them now. RS232 and UDP. They will come with the next version with the DALI release.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, they won't be available with the public beta, but yeah, those will be available.
Just, I mean, do not waste time to find them in the list. They are not available. We've just disabled it.
Okay. A great new feature because, well, yeah, we got a good new feature with the TCAs where, you know, it can sometimes be a little bit mind bending. You're setting up all these different triggers, conditions, and actions, and sometimes you don't necessarily know if you set everything the right way so that a trigger will actually work. Now, if you try it and close this window and you've got a trigger that doesn't do anything or doesn't make any sense to the system, you'll now get an error message appear that details the trigger and the part of the trigger where there's an error. So you won't just be flying blind. It will actively tell you now if a trigger that you've written isn't going to work, which is going to be really, really great when you're troubleshooting triggers and you're wondering why bits and pieces aren't working. And it should prevent a lot of those headaches by catching you at this point so that you can go in and edit it, as opposed to, you know, it's written on device on the site somewhere, you know, the client boots it up for the first time and, oh no, the triggers don't work. So hopefully this will save a lot of headaches when it comes to TCA triggering. Trying to think. ArtNet, good new change that we got to ArtNet now is it will automatically detect nodes that you have on your network. So we've got an ArtNet node where I am here, and it's filled out the node name, IP address, and everything for me. So you're not having to scrabble around trying to find out IP addresses and whatnot. Just a nice little addition to the ArtNet workflow that's going to make it a little bit smoother and just a little bit more efficient, which is great. Another cool new little feature that we've got as well, coming with 2.1, is the ability to load backup files. So previously, obviously, you know, if the worst came to be the software crashed and you hadn't saved in a while, you know, like that's kind of it, that's game over. But you can now load previous generations, if you will, of your ESA Pro 2 project. You can have up to 5 backups at any given time per project, and they'll be stored in this backup folder in your project file. Okie dokie. So that's a lot of the big changes. I'm aware that I've been talking for about 20 minutes now, and be a little bit monotonous. So this feels like a good point to see if there are any other questions, or if anybody wants any more information. Bruno, is there anything that you can think of that I've missed, or anything that we need to circle back to?
I think you done like most of what I wanted
I think
talk about.
we have hit everything. We've hit all
But I guess
the
the most important anyway. I mean, there are some little changes like ordering like triggers and which are important features. But I guess the most important and the how can I say that, the most difficult to understand will be like the change within the timeline selection. I guess this is the at the end you will see that it's a lot more powerful and easy to use, the way you can have like multiple blocks on the same timeline and assigned to different selection. Maybe you don't see right now where you won't be able to use it, but honestly this is a lot easier to use, and to me this is the one of the most important change in this new software version. So, and as I say, you will be able to download the software super soon. I mean, it will be I hope this week, so we can you can start play with it. And DALI will be the next release within the summer, I guess.
yeah.
An important thing with the new software is we have launched. I mean, okay, you can listen to the webinar, but we are also now providing online training session for like specific training session for the software. There are basically 2 levels, which is basic and advanced, and customer can go online and register. So they're like 3 hours training session. There is the calendar on the Nicolaudi Academy webpage, so you can see what we're offering now. It will be available in different languages like English, Spanish and French, depending on the date, of course. And this will be like part of the our academy, Nicolaudi Academy, and I think it's sometimes like as I understand, it's not easy to travel and to go like to our office for training, or so we've decided to do this online training. They are limited to 5 or 6 people, so we have the time to answer question and exchange between the teacher, I mean the trainer, and the and people attending the training. But I think it's a good move for us, and this has been requested from people in charge of commissioning for a long time, and this is so I guess the first date will be like by the end of August. We've decided to start with the there are 2 sessions, like a Monday and Tuesday. Monday is basic and Tuesday is the advanced version. So this is what I wanted to add. I can see there are a couple of questions. I don't know if we have answered everything or not. If there is any more questions.
Any new features on Pan and Tilt? Not to our knowledge, Rob. Everything with the X and Y effects should be staying as it is. Yeah, so we'll be releasing some materials to help support this release. So we should be providing a pretty comprehensive manual that we can hopefully put our first edition of that out when we release the beta, and we'll be releasing an overview and walkthrough document as well. So if you briefly just want to cast your eye over those and just see if there's any other changes that we've missed. And we'll also be, in addition to the online training, we will be doing a video tutorial series to support this as well for beginner and slightly more advanced users. It's not going to cover everything, but it'll be a great way to get to grips with the big new features such as Dina and whatnot when they are released. So keep an eye on the Nickel Woody YouTube channel for those as well in the coming months. And I think that's kind of it. Have we got any further questions from anybody? Sequences. Yeah, so sequences are gone now, and those have been replaced with the paint effect tool, which works as a step editor. So just show you quickly again while we're here, Rob. So it works just as the step editor in ESA 2 does, Rob. You have your steps here, wait times, fade times. You can add additional steps down here. Change your colors in your channels up here. So yeah, sequences are gone. Any other questions? Still can't with that. And tilt. Do you know the answer to that, Bruno? Do you know if we've got invert, pan, and tilt as a feature now? Okay.
I've seen. I don't know if you have answered because for the pan tilt invert. I mean, this is something we can add like a super easily.
Yeah. We'll
I just noted it, so it takes like two minutes to add this. So no problem. We'll add it.
Yeah. We'll make sure that.
Honestly, at the beginning, we thought like most of the people will be using like standard LED RGB, and in fact, we discovered that there's a lot of customers using them for like double features or any moving heads, and so there are like some couple of sequences, so features missing, and with the previous version, we were not able to add them because like the way it was like it was developed. It wasn't possible, but now we're sure that we can access to all the features of those moving heads, and we're gonna be able. So at the moment, there's nothing new, but we'll be able to cover all this these requirements. Like if we more like for moving heads, for anyway like global features, whatever. Like there are a couple of features missing. I know that.
Yeah, and there will be more and more features coming to 2.1 over the next year. You know, we've got many more things in development coming. So yeah, this feature set will expand. And when those features are released, you know, we'll be mentioning them in the manuals. And in the case of big features, they'll have their own dedicated tutorials or webinars, etc., etc. Right. Anything else? Anybody got any other questions for us?
I guess like we have answered to all questions.
Yeah.
So if we're ready, thank you, Harrison. I mean, it was good. It was great.
Thank you.
It was easier for me as I had to sit down and listen. And
you just get to take all the credit now.
That's yes, exactly. So thank you everyone for attending, and again, if you have any question, feel free to ask us by ticket, email, whatever, and we'll be available as usual.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any questions or any further support you need, yeah, just contact us. Yeah, thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.